Hello. Today we're going to talk about my alienated child and the signs that were there. My name is Jim, and this is the Parental Alienation Information Network. In the U.S., over 22 million people are targets of parental alienation, and over 3.8 million children are alienated from a parent. Parental alienation is a damaging pattern of behavior caused by one parent who unjustly engages in the destructive manipulation of a child's perception of an otherwise loving parent. The resulting psychological abuse culminates from many years of covert brainwashing. I am not a mental health professional or a licensed therapist. I'm here to help create awareness and share my experiences and the experiences of others in hopes of encouraging community support. Living with parental alienation is emotionally painful and psychologically damaging to both the targeted parent and the abused child. If you are an alienated parent or a victim of this kind of abuse, know that you are not alone, and I encourage you to seek support. If you find this channel is beneficial, please like and subscribe to help inform more people of the damaging effects of parental alienation. The link to join our Facebook group is posted in the description below, and I thank you for watching. Some of the things my alienated child would do as a teenager. They talk about the 7 signs of an alienated parent, the key things that they look for. So I decided to break it down and give specific details of the behaviors that she would display during her teenage years, especially during the teenage years where, you have to balance between the teenage mindset and actual parental alienation. Let's go through the list. For those of you watching who are dealing with parental alienation, especially with a teenager, you're probably going to recognize many of these traits. So I'll start here with number 1. During family events such as walking down, in my area there's a canal. It's a nice walking path or biking path. Generally she would either walk ahead of the group or ride her bike way ahead of the group to disassociate herself with the rest of us. She would also wear headphones to avoid taking part in conversations or interacting with the rest of us, especially in confined spaces like a vehicle, going on a car ride or going to somewhere, an event. She would notoriously put her headphones on and just block us all out. When at our home, often she would want to be in her own room, claiming to not feel well. And this was on a regular basis. When she decided she was going to disenfranchise herself from the rest of us, she would often just go to her room. When she was communicating, she would often brag about the alienating parent or the alienating parent's family members, the things they were planning to do, the things that they had done, or their accomplishments or achievements, while failing to acknowledge or recognize the same of myself or my family members or my wife's, daughters. This was a regular, common occurrence. She was always very braggadocious about the alienator side of the family. While avoiding communication during visits, she would secretly call the alienating parent, discuss what we were doing. That was a regular habit. She sort of brought the alienating parent into our household that way during my visitation time. It was commonplace. She would call the alienating parent or send pictures for approval if I took her shopping for miscellaneous things, whether it be clothing or something she wanted. She would send her pictures, again, bring her into the visitation, discussing the pricing of the items, what I was spending. Another was often disapproved of the activities that we were planning or taking part in. Planning vacations with my alienated child would lead to drama and anxiety from the child leading up to the trip. On one occasion that I can remember, she actually canceled last minute, which was devastating to us because we had made these arrangements months ahead of time. And I think it was our first trip away together, completely out of town. I believe it was a camping trip. And that really, we went ahead anyway, but it definitely put a damper on the the trip and the events we had planned. She would take pictures of our home, especially leading up to a court appearance, items that needed repair, things that were in disrepair. At this in this particular time, I'm mentioning we had a bathroom that was in disrepair, and it was planned to be renovated. And there was some water leakage. There was a little bit of mold, and she took pictures of it. She gave them to her mother, and they were displayed in court for some odd, weird reason. I mean, this wasn't a custody battle. This was a dispute about her college financing. Had nothing to do with our residence. In fact, at that time, she was already a legal adult, and she had stopped coming for visitation. It was just one of those things to sort of shame us in front of the judge for ridiculous reasons. She would complain to anybody that would listen, including my stepchildren, family, and friends, that I was a deadbeat, that I didn't pay enough child support, that I didn't do enough for her. She would make disparaging and arrogant remarks to me or other family members routinely, just acting as if she was better than the rest of us. She was extremely materialistic. Only the most expensive and trendy items would be good enough. And, some of that lends to being a teenager. They got to have the name brands. They have to compete with their friends. That I get, but it was more than that. It was to the extreme. It had more to do with a status symbol than anything else. So that was a constant battle to get her to try to be not so materialistic. There's more to life than physical possessions. She made claims during my divorce. My alienator was sharing divorce documents with my daughter, who was a teenager, but she was a young teenager at that time. Keep in mind, I'm bouncing back and forth through the whole teenage years. When I got divorced, I think she was like 12 or 13. And you tell me what goes through the mind of a parent that is sitting there and sharing their divorce documents with their teenage, very young child, dragging them through this muck of divorce, and having them offer their opinion on a divorce settlement. I mean, that's just insane. What kind of parent would do that? Well, we know what kind of parent would do that. An alienating parent, someone with narcissistic personality disorders, would do that to a child, not even thinking about not even the damage to the perception of myself, but to the damage of the own child's mind, having to pick through divorce paperwork. Come on. That's ridiculous. That is child abuse. That is child abuse. So she was actually telling me what she wanted out of our divorce. My items, or items that were jointly owned, what she wanted. That just completely blew me away. And, there was some personal items that I owned that I just freely gave to her that I wanted her to have. Like, I play guitar. I gave her an acoustic guitar and electric guitar. They were hers. I gifted them to her. And I found out 6-8 months later that she actually sold them, and she didn't keep them for any length of time. She actually sold them rather quickly. My daughter sold them as a child. She sold them to her older brother's friend who had an interest in them, so she sold them. They meant nothing to her, although she wanted them. I guess she wanted them to sell them. So there was no value to them, of them to her. Generally thanklessness. I mean, there was periods as a younger teenager, during and after divorce, she was thankful. It was prior to being fully alienated. She was thankful, about a lot of things, and it was genuine. But as the years progressed, there was there was no real thankfulness, no appreciation. It was, what can you do for me because you pretty much owe me. Is was the mindset. Um, Other items like agreeing on an activity as a family unit. Myself, my stepdaughters, my daughter, and my fiance at the time, who's now my wife. Um, we would agree on a particular event, or to go see a movie or watch a movie on TV, or whatever the plans would be. It would be an agreement. This is what we were going to do. And then once we got into it, then she would disengage from it. I lost interest quickly, for whatever reason. I guess maybe just for the drama of it. I guess I'm not sure. um, Big life events, that I planned, such as her Sweet 16 uh, party, her confirmation party, um, birthday event, maybe even. They were generally in her later teens. They were all mocked. Nothing was good enough. Nice Italian restaurant for her Sweet 16, and it was mocked. She wasn't happy with the gifts, you know, just generally unappreciative, in every level, just a high level of arrogance and dismissiveness. Not only unappreciative of the gifts she received from us, but my family as well. She would badmouth me regularly to my stepdaughters, to family and friends, that I was a deadbeat dad, that I didn't do enough. I don't know if I said that already, but any chance the opportunity presented itself, she would parrot her mother word for word, pretty much. These are the things that are drilled into a teenager's mind, and you wonder why they grow to dislike the alienated parent, because that is a lot of animosity in a child's developing mind swirling around in there. They're trying to make heads or tails out of it, and when it's done enough for a long enough period of time, they it doesn't matter what they see before their eyes. It's what they've been made to believe in their heads. And for any alienated parent, that's it's not just heartbreaking in the sense that you're not getting the respect. It's just generally um, devastating that someone is actually doing this to your child, someone that you had a relationship that, okay, so the relationship didn't work out, but really, do you have to poison the mind of a child to get even, or for whatever motivates you? It's just incomprehensible in my mind. A couple other items here. She would claim that I did nothing at work all day. I just went to work and did nothing. I had no responsibilities at work, and that's also parroting my alienator. She would I would work 10, 12-hour days sometimes, physically demanding work in the early days. Later days, I was more of a desk job. Even though it wasn't as physically demanding, it was mentally demanding. You're the boss, so you're responsible. So yeah, I would go to work 10, 11 hours a day, and I did nothing all day. And on top of that, I didn't make enough money doing nothing all day. So there's the mindset there. And not only would she obviously tell these things to my youngest daughter, who I'm referring to, but she would also tell these things. If you watched my previous video where I explained all the children and the dynamics, I have an older daughter who was living with us at that period of time when all the brainwashing, the mind control was taking over. So she had claimed the minds of my older daughter, who was not her child, and my youngest daughter, who we share. So I was up against both of them, and there was a stepson involved as well. So if you have any interest in hearing that whole story, I laid it out pretty well in the previous video. It's actually chapter 1. This video here is not part of what I'm calling a video book of the progression. This video is just to highlight some of the alienating traits that were prominent. And these are just things that I know of. I'm sure there was things said and done behind my back that to this day, probably don't know, what occurred, what was said, who they were said to. But that's, at this point, that's neither here nor there. Basically, it's water under the bridge. That is the details of the signs of my alienated child. And I'm sure other alienated parents, especially with their teenagers, have seen many similar attributes that I just described here. So for those of you who are questioning, is my child being alienated, you might have an inclination to believe they are, and you're trying to find information that may, validate your suspicions. If you're seeing any of those traits, somebody is manipulating your child, because they don't just come up with this stuff. They don't just come up with that you're a deadbeat parent or that you're not doing enough. That's way deeper than they can come up with on their own. They may want for things that you're not providing them, because they're teenagers and they want the latest and the greatest iPhone or whatever it is. That's different. That's different than some of the details that I laid out here for you. So hopefully your scenario doesn't fit this. Hopefully you're not. In my mind, it's progressive. Maybe professionals agree or don't agree with that, but that's what I've surmised, is that it's a progression. Parental alienation is a progression. It starts out at a low level, builds over time, and then in a blink, it's full on parental alienation, to where you have lost any control over your child and the way that they view you. That's not to say that it'll be that way forever. In my particular case, I would say I'm going on 14 years from the progression to full on. I've been fully alienated from my youngest daughter. I would say about 10 years. 10 years since fully alienated, since the time since her senior year in high school. Hopefully, there are some stories with happy endings, as I've seen on YouTube and what I've read. But there are a lot of stories where, there's still no happy ending. So hang in there. I hope that I've offered you some information that is useful. I appreciate you watching. Thank you.